Hey YouTube, it's Mr. Nor 14 and today I want to talk about why I believe the PS5 and Xbox Series X will be one of the worst generations ever launched. And it's for, simple reasons, because Microsoft and and Sony should not have released this next generation for the simple fact that they did a refresh. And usually when you do a refresh, you don't make your system the most powerful system ever created. Okay, you don't make it so that it can play 4K games at 60 frames per second solidly. You don't do things like that when you're doing a refresh. All you're doing is saying, hey, here's the same old stuff. It's cheaper to make now, so we can give it to you at a lower price. That's what a refresh is supposed to mean. But Sony and Microsoft went with the PS4 Pro and the Xbox One X. They actually made better systems. So there was no need to even launch this console generations for another 3 years. What is my number one reason that this will be the worst console generation ever? COVID-19. By the time these systems launch in November, there won't be anybody having money to purchase them. There will be no money. People won't even have homes in America to purchase these devices. Now, I don't know how it will be over the rest of the world, but I know as far as being American, we have not handled COVID at all. So we will have homeless numbers out of control. We will have people with no jobs. Why in the world would you launch a system and still try to launch a system when you know what the economy will look like, where the America is hemorrhaging, the world is hemorrhaging, and you want to tell people, hey, go spend another $500? Man, I need that $500 to feed my family. Okay, again, there was no reason for this generation. Okay, why would Microsoft make the most powerful console in the world, the Xbox One X, and then stop making it? Why? Because there was no sense to have the Xbox One X and the Xbox Series X. That's another reason. That shows you that this console generation was not needed. You do not have a refresh and make your console better. When you have a refresh, the parts are cheaper, so you make the console so that you can sell it at a cheaper price. Thus, you're selling more units because now your system is cheaper. You don't make a better system. This is why this thing will fail, people, and this is why I do not understand why this generation is here. It used to be back in the days, the developers of games would let people know when it was time for a new system, because then they would make their games and you would see them and they would tell you this is a next generation game. We're waiting on the next generation of games. Technology has improved to the point where our vision of a new game with these graphics, with these capabilities, can finally be seen on a next generation console. That's how we used to do it before Microsoft rushed the Xbox generation, the original, with the Xbox 360. And then Sony turns around and does it with this. They rush the PS4, even though they're leading all over the world. They're making the best games. They're doing this, they're doing that. But they still are greedy. They want to rush to the new PS5. And so Microsoft has to come behind them, and say, hey, we got to do this too. Now we're sitting here, and I know hindsight is 2020. Nobody expected COVID to be this dangerous or anything like that. But the fact remains that It used to be game developers that told us when we were going to the next level. Okay, another thing is no games for this generation will be ready for another 2 to 3 years that will even take advantage of these systems' powers and capabilities. That's why we should have just stayed in this generation, and then the developers should have went and said, okay, well, our next crop of games that we're going to come out, because these systems would have been here for 10 years, and they would have been like, okay, the next games we're making are for the next generation. Here we go. This is what we need from you, Microsoft. This is what we need from you, Sony, and let the games begin. But no, it's all about greed, and COVID is basically going to put an end to all that greed. Now, I said in one of my posts that I didn't even believe that Microsoft or Sony would even release a new console because of COVID. Well, all things said, these two companies, these two dummies, are saying that they're going to release their systems anyway. Well, you go ahead and release those systems, and you're going to lose a lot of money because the bottom line is, come November, there are not going to be any people who can afford a $500 console. And people are not going to buy these consoles because they're going to be trying to feed their families and keep a roof over their heads. This is why this will be the worst generation console in history ever developed. This will go down in history as a shameful time that two companies, even though they refreshed their two consoles to be even better than the generation that they were in, they still forced and rushed people who couldn't even feed themselves, let alone their families, could not even keep them housed because of the super great recession because of COVID-19 we're going into. Now, they say that maybe there'll be a cure, some type of vaccine at the end of the year, early 2021. But that in itself leaves questions because are people going to trust these things? Something that's been barely tested. You don't give. You do not give, and I'll say it again, you do not give a vaccine to healthy people. You do not give a vaccine to healthy people when you do not know the effects or side effects that it can cause. So that's my rant for today, people, and that's why I feel that this will be the worst generation in history because it's forced. It wasn't needed. First time in history that console makers made better consoles in that generation instead of just making them cheaper because parts were cheaper. They actually made them better to withstand another 3 to 5 years. We could have been using the PS4 Pro and the Xbox One X for another 3 to 5 years. Again, that is my rant. Let me know how you feel. Do you think that this generation is needed? Do you think that we're headed in the right direction? Do you think COVID will intervene with the sales, or you don't think that? Just let me know. This is Mr. North 14. Peace out.